players are starting to say it's not the golden age anymore, it's the platinum age. But what if the peak system told you which worlds were empty as well? Thing is, I bloody loved crashing at Bandos.
Hello everyone and welcome to the official Old School RuneScape podcast, where we get to chat shit with JMods and creators alike.
And this is our chance to get to know the JMod behind the crown, hear their stories, hear their experiences. And today's JMod is...
Mod Kieren! It's me!
Welcome back,
I don't know
Kieren.
what you wanted me to do there, but you get
I'm
that.
your host, Mod Sween, and I'm joined by...
Mod Aiza. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for coming back onto the cast, Kieren. It's been quite a while since we've had you on.
It's been a little while. I'm buzzing that we're doing this again. I'm happy to chat to you lovely people as well. Thanks for putting it together and having me on.
So we've released these end of last year, but we actually recorded them as part of Game Jam at the beginning. So it's been nearly a year and a half since those.
That's crazy.
So I thought if we can get into it, I thought a good place to start would be what's changed since then. So since we recorded this podcast, we've released a ton of content, like Araxor, Valamore 2, Valamore 3, Yammer. We've brought RuneFest back. There's been Deadman Armageddon. There's been the run energy changes, more rebalancing, tons of qual, and loads more.
It's kind of staggering.
It's crazy.
To be honest, it doesn't feel that long ago.
Not that long ago. And we were talking about people are saying we're in a golden age. Now people are saying that again, but even more so. I guess let's start with what's your take on the last year of Jagex?
I mean, I think it's been a pretty incredible ride. I mean, the fact that players are starting to say it's not the golden age anymore, it's the platinum age, and we're going through such a boom in general that, I mean, I think it's just testament to all of those sort of updates that you've just listed. Like, that's a crazy amount of stuff that we've done, and actually, I mean, it shows how incredible the team is getting through all that work. But out of all of those, like, the thing that stands out to me is like stuff like Valamore. I think it's really been a long time coming, that project, if you go all the way back to the start of the very first Zare update, which we're not exactly proud of how that ended up. But I don't regret that, because the team was like 10 people or something at the time. Like, they had the ambition to go and try and do something that was, maybe slightly foolish to think we could pull that off. But if we hadn't done that, would we have been where we are now with Valamore being wrapped up and all the work we've done, all the quality updates to Zare since? We've got a whole new continent now, and it's finished. And the last year has seen us really power through that. The last year and a half, if you start including Valamore, the first update as well. But the fact that we're in a place where we're delivering completely new content. I mean, Valamore, it's never been mentioned before. It wasn't mentioned in 2007. There was no concept of the thing. Yet, Valamore, as a package, was described as nostalgic by players and stuff like that, which says a lot that we're still managing to hit that same feeling and generate the same feelings that RuneScape always has. And to me, it's a sure sign we're doing something right. And you see new players coming in now lately who have got so much appreciation for updates like Valamore, and it just fits into the game in a way that any other location kind of does as well. But yeah, Platinum Age, it feels good. I feel like we're on top of the world right now, to be honest.
I also feel like we've got very lucky. Well, arguably, it's like the fruits of our labor kind of culminating, but we couldn't have predicted the amount of players we got over the summer, and we definitely could not have planned having Valamore drop straight in the middle of it either.
Yeah. I think you generate your own luck. I think every single game pretty much in the world requires a bit of luck to really get players. There's so many games out there.
Yeah.
There's so many MMOs in our world as well. And it's just the right moment, right? It might be the right streamer picks it up. It might be the right ad somehow goes viral. It's just a lot of things happen by moments. But what we are in control of is making sure this game is great, and that lets you benefit from the luck when it happens. And if the game wasn't great, somebody might be interested and then find out, oh, I don't like this game.
True.
And it doesn't blow up. So like, I think the work that we've done over the last, however long, 10 plus years now, has been what's put us in the place to be able to capitalize on what's happened recently with so many people moving over at the end of the day. And yeah, there's a lot of luck involved, but
way more than 10 years
we couldn't
now.
pick up on that luck without what
coming
we've
up
done.
13 years, right?
Next year will be, yeah, you're right.
So some things I know. I might not have known where Goose's fire cave was, but I know that one at least. I think it's just awesome that we're in a point now where more and more people are getting to experience all of the fantastic things that Old School has to offer. Because like I've believed in this game from the start. I know that pretty much everyone, I'd say everyone in the team also feels the same way. And you mentioned, you know, fruits of your labor there, Sween. And I truly believe that like, yeah, I think we deserve this right now as a studio, but also as a community, because there is so much that the game has to offer. And the team genuinely do put in so much effort, so much passion into all the work that they do. And being able to see other people now finally experiencing that for the first time and making comparisons to other games that they've played as well. I've really enjoyed the last 6 to 12 months of that growth and that new resurgence of people. It's also made community management a lot more different because we've got new dynamics to deal with as well. Kieren, there was so much content that was mentioned there, and quite often there's this talk around needing to preserve Old School, but at the same time we want to be innovative in terms of content. How do you personally find that balance?
Firstly, I think we've done generally pretty darn good at this. Like, I don't think the game feels unrecognizable or unfamiliar from what Old School professes to be, right? It's meant to be that version of RuneScape you remember. You still log into that the first time. You spawn, you do tutorial, you spawn in Lumbridge. The game generally feels like it plays very similarly to how it did. You see a combination of things you recognize and some things you don't. And kind of like I was just saying about Valamore, a lot of it invokes similar feelings. I'm not going to sit here and say we get absolutely everything spot on, but I think this is where the power of the polling system and community also plays a huge role. They stop us making mistakes at times, right? Like, we think we've got a great plan, we've got an amazing idea, we passionately pitch it in a blog, and players tell us where to shove it sometimes. And that process stops us from going too far with something that's going to change the game for the worse. And a lot of it is always in the rewards. Like, content's kind of content. You've always had quests of completely different types, different tones, different characters, different like storylines. They all kind of fit. It's quite eclectic in that way. But rewards can shift the game.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, like, without diving into a whole new topic like power creep or something, I think when you look back at the 2007 to like 2012 sort of era, the amount of stuff that came into the game that changed how the game feels. I'm not here to say those updates are necessarily bad or good or whatever, but they are more game changing. Like, summoning drastically changes the game, right? You get a Beast of Burden, it can carry 30 items with you to a boss. That would change the feeling of how Old School plays drastically, let alone other things as well, like power upgrading weapons. Some of the best weapons in game come from dungeoneering. I don't imagine there's a world where Old School would bring out the best in slot weaponry and just drop them from a skill in that way. Would PVM's kind of always been the nexus of how we deliver our top end equipment. It'd be awesome to involve skilling a little bit more, but I can't imagine us ever doing it that directly and it being untradeable in that way. Those updates change how the game feel and represent the sort of updates that Old School probably doesn't do. While Old School sticks a bit closer to what the essence of the original game was, our principles haven't really shifted. I think we've better refined and understood what makes Old School work. And, when you say, conserve, what word did you use? Like, staying true to...
Yeah, it was like there's tension between, like, around preserving the Old School feel kind of thing.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that preservation, I think, comes down to the principles behind the game. And I think we've better understood those. And we've seen a lot of talk about it recently, like the sort of horizontal progression within the game, the permanence of progression. These things matter so much. And I think we've, over time, better had a grasp on why that is and how to better protect that.
So what would you say the principles are then at the moment?
So permanence of progression, it's absolutely king. We shouldn't be undermining people's achievements. For example, if we think, I would actually argue, I think runecrafting was poorly balanced, right, on launch. If you go all the way back, it's just too darn slow for how intensive it is as a training method. We couldn't change it now. Like, we can add different things, and I think you can add layers. Like, you got a better rune pouch now. That does accelerate it. But we couldn't go in and say, all right, runecrafting was just badly balanced. Let's double the XP rates.
I'm sure players would love it, though.
I'm sure some people would love it. And I'm sat here arguing that it probably should have been faster.
Yeah.
But if you do something like that, you undermine the achievements of players as well. I think
if you're looking at it from the purpose, okay, it's a skill and it needs to be trained to try and reach 99, so you need an XP rate, rather than looking at it like this exists because it provides runes, and then you need runes because it's called RuneScape, first of all.
Yeah.
And that's like Rune Mysteries reveals that, oh my gosh, we've just rediscovered how you bring runes back, and now we can create magic. When you look at it through that lens, way back in 2000 and early doors, it makes a bit more sense.
Yeah, it makes sense that it didn't have the same level of thought going into those numbers. And what they criticize that process. I don't have a clue what that process looked like back then, but we've heard certainly that no one ever expected players to be going to 99 in skills and so on. So it wasn't thought about in the same way as we probably do now. When we're thinking about skills, we're thinking about, all right, how much is it? What's its XP rate versus how intense is it? Versus what its requirements are, versus what else it generates in terms of gold or output and so on. And a skill can have multiple methods that sit in slightly different spots, and we position them all quite carefully so that there's a genuine option for players, and we're not undermining everything else that's came before it. But I think the most important thing with the progression stuff is you never lose it. It's permanent. So when you come back to if you temporarily quit and come back in a year, all the stuff you've earned, all the stuff, whether it's your gear, whether it's your skills, will continue to be useful, continue to have a purpose.
There might be a couple of upgrades you might want to go and get, or some side grades for better, now optimal. I mean, the point is, it won't be worse than it was.
Yeah, your whip.
You could do something like make it better, but it won't be worse than it was.
100%. Like the whip was once the best weapon in the game, right? Long time ago. Now, do you still, if that's your character, you log on, you've just got a whip, still pretty bloody good.
Yeah.
It's just now there's further things you can do with that gear and so on. But it's never lost. You never get reset. We don't do things like a stat squish and so on. Like the game is preserving your achievements. And this whole game, the point is, old school RuneScape is a game based on progression. We've all had that experience, right? Whether you're an Iron Man or a main, and you're like, I want to go and do Theatre of Blood. All right, if I need to do that, I need to go and do this quest, this quest, this quest.
Yep.
I need to get this skill, this skill, this skill. And you end up like 7 layers deep into this network of progression stuff. And then you're like, wait, what was my goal?
I love it.
In a way. And that to me is literally the feeling of the game. I've heard old school RuneScape described as like a Metroidvania on like some absurd scale.
Oh, it's constantly having to kind of path back.
Because you're having a path back and you got all this, the complexity in the progression network is genuinely the heartbeat of the game. And so to me, when we're doing updates, like whether it's Guardians of the Rift or a new quest with an awesome unlock like Prifdinus or something, we're all just adding new nodes onto this huge network. It's like a spider web in my mind of which path are you going down next. And you got to go down all these paths to unlock the next level up. And it's just complex to the point you can't really actually draw that network down.
I'm trying to in my head, and I'm like losing concentration of listening to you because I'm like picturing this big network diagram from back when I was in my IT days, and it's really distracting me. So I'm going to try and stop thinking about that.
It's crazy, but a lot of this thinking was stuff I had in my mind over the years. I've been at Jagged since 2015. I've passed my 10-year anniversary now, which is kind of wild how fast that's gone as well.
And you're also a director as well now. Congratulations, buddy.
You. I'd say it took me the first 4 or 5 years at Jagex to truly start to understand, why does this game work? Like truly what it works. And then you might have seen the video. There's like a 3-hour video about what makes old school RuneScape work, why it kind of feels like it's not an MMO in some ways and so on. That video talks about how it feels like a Metroidvania, and I think that video is amazing. And it closely mirrors our thinking on why the game works.
I know what you mean. I can't remember the creator, but it's like blue thumbnail, old school logo.
Blue thumbnail, yeah. And the video it's got tons of views. I think it's well north of 1 million. And it's not exciting. It's not this flashy video. It's not like Mr. Beast style, like craziness going on. No, it's quite a dry video. It's 3 hours of pretty well structured research.
Masted. I think the video is from Masted. Okay. Yeah,
Nice.
3 hours, 20 minutes.
And I think it's incredible that 1 million plus people, I mean, maybe we shouldn't be surprised. It's the old school RuneScape community. You sit there and grind 10 hours a day and hundreds of hours to get a 99. That a 3-hour video seems like child's play.
Like nothingness.
But I think if you want to get an understanding of why this game works, that video is better than any other that I've seen. And it was interesting watching that video the first time and hearing sort of played back to me similar thoughts on why the game will work. Different language and presented in a slightly different way. But it was really interesting and great to get that perspective. And I think, we're talking about all the players who've been coming over, the streamers and so on, and hearing a lot of the things that we've talked about, that guy talks about in that video as well, resonate with new players and them call it out as well. It's awesome. And it's reassuring that we're probably doing some of the right things. So, in that video, he talks about sort of balancing levers, like little dials. I've always used the metaphor of like the light bulb problem. You've got 3 light bulbs and you've only got so much power, which, you can see the light bulbs can't all be fully bright.
I think we covered this on the last one too.
We might have touched on it, yeah. I think that's really interesting about how we're balancing skills and methods against each other. But the permanence, the progression, and the progression network is what makes the game perfect. So it sounds cliche, but we do talk about this game being, it's a journey, not the destination. Our goal isn't to fast track you to Makeship and then spend your whole life doing raids. Loads of people love that. And that is the end goal for so many people. But the vast majority of time on your account is getting max. It's getting your skills up. It's completing the quests. And that is what makes the game work. Most people don't reach max, right? If the whole game is about that journey, that progression, how satisfying it feels when you get your goals, Barrow's Gloves used to be endgame. And nowadays it feels like one of those things you need to achieve in your first few weeks.
Yeah, you get it straight away now.
But it feels amazing nevertheless every single time you get Barrow's Gloves. It's one of the ultimate milestones, and it represents everything we've just been saying about that progression network, right? To get Barrow's Gloves, it is a laundry list of different things.
I bet your little Iron Man is buzzing to get those Barrow's Gloves.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
It's super fresh, but it's on my list of things to do relatively soon. There's a bit from Malcolm in the Middle that I always refer to when I hear about this kind of the setting goals and you have to go and achieve something else. And I think Hal wants to change a light bulb. And then to do that, he opens a drawer, but it's squeaky.
Yeah.
So then he needs to do that. And I think it ends with Lois being like, "How I thought you were changing a light bulb." And I think he's there fixing a car and being like, "What does it look like I'm doing?"
Yeah, I remember that is so vividly in my brain as well.
So we've touched on way back at the start of this great bit of like insight from you around our pillars and the kind of balancing and permanence progression. You kind of touched on power creep in the past. And then you mentioned things like people want to get to raids at the end.
Yeah.
We have 3 raids. Each raid has a mega rare, kind of so like with a clear, that mega rare is that combat style. We announced raids 4 at RuneFest, very light on details. I'm not asking you to tell us what the reward is going to be. You're welcome to do so. But how are we going to approach raids 4 in mind? That's when we need to, I think that's going to be a challenge for us.
It is a big challenge. The last raid was kind of simple, right? In a sense, you've got your melee weapon in the scythe, you've got your twisted bow. What are you doing for magic? Like, it was
it wasn't
clear.
Because we had,
it was hard.
We had the hacker's wands or whatever it was. But, and then players were like, okay, we get why you're doing this, but
we don't like it.
It's not.
Yeah.
Can I hit a 70 with it? Don't care.
Yeah.
so fine. Here's
right.
Shadow.
It's still hard, but it was obviously got to be a magic weapon, right?
Of course.
There was a clear direction, right? We need to fill the mega rare space for magic.
Yeah.
Now it's a pretty blank slate, right? We've got one of all 3 styles. What on earth do we do next?
Yep. Can we just let's please not add one for every style. Let's not do a chambers again where it's like bloated with rewards.
Similarly,
we are very conscious of not over bloating with like middling rewards as well.
That's a difficulty in its own part as well though, right? Because if there don't seem to be enough rewards, then suddenly it's in the players' minds, why do I want to bother doing it? It's like there needs to have that draw, that allure there to bring you in.
It absolutely does, and it needs a mega rare. There's no doubt the next raid will come with a mega rare. We've started brainstorming. Mod Rice has done some awesome ideation on it and presented a bunch of ideas. We have no idea which necessarily one we might go with yet, but realistically, like with the Shadow, it's a conversation with the players, right? As you know, talking about power creep and not doing the wrong thing, the players have been so immensely important to every single reward we've added to added to these blogs. That's where all the discussion always is. It's where all the controversy is. It's where everyone gets their passionate opinions out, whether good or bad, about it, and makes sure and holds us to account on getting it right. To me, I'm interested in what the players think the next Mega Rare should do. And then, I'm pretty sure the Scythe came from a player idea. Like, I remember we stuck up a thread about Theatre of Blood and what rewards we'd like to see come from it. All of the rewards, to some extent, were inspired by these threads and ideation.
So I'm looking at Aiza being like, actually, I think we drew the Scythe on paint during a Game Blast stream.
Pretty sure we did. I was about to say, do you remember that game jam session?
Yeah, I did.
Drawing it on paint? It's like, what if it was a big scythe that had this vial of blood dangling down from it, and then the artists ended up...
That's so cool.
We were killing time at like 2 a.m. because somebody either went home or fell asleep, and we were like, can you guys do something? Like, yeah, sure, go on.
Yeah, we can.
And this is around the time when I think Ghost and West were doing loads of design streams.
Yeah.
We're like, let's do our own one, me and you.
Yeah, let's do it. It's probably on my X still somewhere from there. There'll be a bunch of different items.
Yeah.
The first one was like the Dragon Dagger and then the Scythe. Anyway, yeah.
It's the hardest part of the raid development, really, is getting these rewards right. And I'm not trying to even undersell making a whole raid and like so many bosses. It's hard itself, but to me, you can make content fun, and the goal of that content should be awesome. It should be a great time, and so on, and meet its difficulty needs and so on. But
you want to see that purple loop,
making sure the rewards good, making sure the process around the rewards, and we were thinking about in Toa. One of my highlights of Tombs of a Massacre is the way it reveals the unique.
Yeah,
right?
It's so sick.
Like, we spent a little bit more time thinking about, well, that's the moment, right? Surely, beating the bosses is cool. The ending animation when you beat the wardens and it gets sucked into the little like black hole like thing.
And the music's great. It's sick.
It's amazing, right?
Awesome.
The experience is incredible.
Yeah.
But nothing tops. Oh my God, it's a purple chest.
Yeah.
And you can see the journey. You go back to Chambers of Xeric, there's one single chest. You can't even see the purple if you're not the one who received it.
We need to change that.
I would love to change that. And we've moved it forward. And Tombs of a Massacre now is the build up to which it's going to be. It's like,
anything.
I like to make that experience
to slog
cooler,
through 3
right?
skilling rooms to finally get the loot. What is it? I'm like, it's White Beam. Now I'm depressed and I don't want to run the raid again.
Never lucky, man. Never lucky.
Fine, send it again. All right, Monkey Room. Never mind. Let's go
to be fair, I did get a Fang pretty early on, so I was okay and happy about that.
Yeah.
I got
Tombs of a Massacre feels so much nicer now since the changes as well. Like, I've really enjoyed doing a bunch of grinding there solo on my group iron.
Nice.
So.
I need to go back. I did a few chambers the other night with pure spam. That was fun just to get back into my iron because I've been crabbing a little while, like AFKing it on the side. Admittedly, I've just been out of the game for a fair bit, just distracted with work and real life and other bits. But the crab was a great way to just draw me back into just getting some of the skills up that I just neglected. I didn't bother with defense, for example. It's like, what's the point? I'm just going to do damage anyway.
It's so funny. Why does like the gemstone crab started as this idea of, there was a community suggestion on Reddit.
Yeah.
That was literally just, why don't we just make a big crab so you can do it together and not have to hop worlds?
But it's so sick though, because there are so many times where I know that I can get better rates if I go and AFK at like the Nagras, for example, or I could hop around and find a crab. But the problem is, it's the thought of doing that puts me off doing it. And it's that little 10 minutes worth of prep even if it's only 20 minutes or so, that's enough for me to be like, well, I need to focus on work. I can't be doing that.
Yeah.
I will just log out and then forget about it. And then 2 hours later, I'll look over and be like, oh yeah, I was doing that. The crab, however, oh my God.
It's so nice.
Perfect.
I love it so much. And you're right. It's that little bit of effort of, I don't need to hop world, find a world. And then even the interaction is confusing, right?
I love and hate the chat, actually. I should clarify that.
Well, I'm surprised by it. It's built to be AFK in the sense of old school, not truly AFK, but you still have to like minimal attention. But there is more chat there than anywhere else.
Yeah.
You should be, why are you talking? You should be doing something else right now. This is your chance to be productive, not talking
Well, the thing
about
is,
whatever nonsense
someone
you're talking
pipes
about.
up with a piece of nonsense and then someone else has an opinion on that, which then forms into an opinion on something else. And then someone who's been AFK for 5 minutes is looking at the chat log for a second and being like, what the hell is going on? It's like, guys, we're at the crab, chill out. I love it. Honestly, I do.
Yeah, if you spend too time trying to microanalyze what's going on at the Gemstone Crab chat or the Winterton chat, whatever.
Someone should do a study on that. I wonder what would come back from it.
A study.
Yeah.
But it is remarkable. Like that little bit less effort and the weird interaction where you got to reset aggro. It's so confusing as a mechanic. Like it's strange, and the way it works under the hood is like bizarre as well.
Yeah, well,
but it's just annoying, right? The way you've got to run is different. If you got the plugin on Runelight, it tells you like where the boundaries are. You see they change all the time, and it's quite confusing. But I don't like that interaction of having to run away every 10 minutes and come back. That feels a bit clunky. The gemstone crab feels like intentional, and everything about it just feels really nice. But again, it represents another sort of pillar of this game, like the single player but together. So why do I say that? Why is that a pillar? It's an MMO, for goodness sake. But it's linked to the progression, right? All that progression is personal. Most of this game kind of somewhat plays like a single player game. You're completing your own quest, you're leveling your own skills, but together, because often you're in a shared world, and you do gemstone crab, and there's other people around you, and so on. There are people to show off your progression to, and that adds to it mattering. Because I think, for the most part, there's some features that wouldn't, but for the most part, old school RuneScape could almost work as a single player game. There are obviously parts of the game that don't, and there's parts of the game that are aimed at groups, but for the most part, it would work. But I don't think it'd be successful in any way, shape, or form. I think the but together bit is so important. You put that fire cape on, and sure, I think it looks cool. Or you put your infernal cape on, and it's like, hell yeah. But it's the fact other people see it. I feel like adds something to it.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
It's the clan chat broadcast, and then people saying grats.
It's the social experience.
It's a little bit validating, isn't it? And then obviously you have group content too, but the social experience of achieving a goal, it's like, oh, okay, that was worth it. Nice.
But that validation also is almost, in essence, a reward as well by part of your investment to it, right? It's like one of the things I struggle with single player games, even though I play a lot of them, and there are some really fantastic single player games, is that there'll become a point where I start to lose interest because I've got a grasp of what the game's about, the story, I'm hooked into it, but then I feel like that I need more from it. I am definitely an online gaming kind of like fan in that sense, because I can compete against other people, or I can show off what I've got to someone else. And it sounds really weird, but it feels better knowing that my grind, someone else can look at that and be like, he's insane, or he's crazy, or actually you suck, you need to get better, to help motivate. And I don't get that from single player games, and I hate it because I really want to continue. Like I've got so many that I've not completed because I just fall off, and I'm eventually like, well, I'll go back into an online game because at least that way my time investment is like compared against other people's time investments. I don't feel as bad for spending so many hours.
I think you have to find like the right gaming community for that. Like I love a JRPG, and that is totally, your own. You put in what you get. Like
when I was younger, it was different. I was fully into them, and there are certain single player games that I will go through that are like really true to my heart, like Legend of Zelda. I will always go and play through those and complete them as much as I can. Although I've still not done Tears of the Kingdom, which is really bad, but still. But yeah, it's like as soon as I hit into the age of World of Warcraft and old school RuneScape, that mentality for me shifted so much, and I want it back so bad. I was thinking as I would get older, it would become more and more as I get worse and worse at online games, but just,
I mean, there's something magical to the social aspects. 100%. And obviously, like Gemstone Crab, I think that also represents something I'd like to do with more of the game ultimately, is changing something from being this annoying competition of hopping worlds to being something I can do it. It's still kind of single player, right? You don't have to form a team. It's not like you're asking your friends, oh, shall we do a round of Gemstone Crab tonight? You just turn up. You turn up. You turn up on a single player basis, but other people are there. And it's awesome feeling like other people are doing it with you. There is a chat if you want to not be AFK fully. And that stuff adds to the experience. It's just better. And at the end of the day, Gemstone Crab isn't that different to other crabbing. But yeah, look at the popularity. It's almost cult-like how many people worship that.
Well, yeah, you go to the other crabs, so there's a person there, and suddenly you're having a fight. It's no longer a nice social interaction. You're brawling,
and then it's I just went to the bank.
Yeah,
as if that lets you have any rights to keep that bloody spot. You weren't there.
Yeah,
but people say that all the time, and I want to improve the hopping experience at most content. Obviously, there's some things that are difficult to do, right? Like Slayer spots, right? For instance. How do you make that social in a single world? Well, I might have talked about it on a stream before or something, but the idea of the sort of what we've dubbed the world peak system. So, you go to a boss, we're all familiar with the peak option, right? Like you're outside the KQ layer, you peek, it tells you how many people are inside it. Really useful, right? You don't have to run in and take a couple of attacks from the KQ to realize somebody's in there. But what if the peak system told you which worlds were empty as well? So it didn't just tell you this world's occupied, it told you this world's free.
Yeah.
That is a method that we could just improve the hopping experience. it's complicated because we need the tech to sort of help drive that, or we have to come up with some janky solution. And we got janky solutions in mind, but we'd love to do it a bit better. But obviously, something like, I don't know, the one that comes to mind is Dust Devils in the Kieren Catacombs. It's such a good spot. You're bursting it, so it's popular. We'd need to come up with a way that at such a location, you can bring up an interface that tells you which world's empty there. Maybe they're defined by us, but anyway, don't need to go into the details. But I think stuff like that is immensely valuable.
Yeah, it's
to
really a cool idea.
improving the game.
You were speaking about that for years as well. Ooh,
yeah.
Sorry, production. Microphone's back where it was. My bad. It's big fists.
It's just quite hard to pull off and fit in. And obviously, as Serene, you went through the huge list of stuff we've been working on. Something like that is a pretty large quality of life piece of work, but it's not like, oh my God, it's new content. It's super exciting. So it's like, it's always a trade-off trying to fit in those updates. But they are important. The same as something like clans is so important.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of the benefits of that. And there's stuff I'd love to take further with clans. But again, the social experience, you get that achievement. You get a ping in your clan chat now. That wasn't a thing before clans, right?
Yep.
You go back 5 years, you weren't getting those. And we all love that now. You see your friends getting achievement. Everyone says grats in the chat or something. It adds to it.
I got 99 HP and everyone's just saying very healthy. And then I think I got like the notification for 20 mil HP experience, like very, very healthy. I just love that. I want to ask the question actually around this whole world peak system. And you were talking about, how would you make things like Slayer more of a social interaction, or even if we should, I'm not saying that you said that we should do that. And I want to know what your view on competition for resources is. Do you think that it's important in old school in its current form? Because I remember a few years back when we were on the original couch, this question has came up before, and I think unanimously we said that competition for resources is a good thing, that there should be competition out there. How do you feel about that now? Has your mindset changed?
My mind is, I think it's generally just annoying to core gameplay, but there is a time and place for it, obviously. Firstly, I'd say I'm one person,
Yeah,
I might be the design director, but there's lots of people on the team with different opinions, and they all have a big contribution to this game as well. It's not like I'm dictating everything on this stuff, but I don't see how having to hop 25 times to find a Dust Devil world is an additive experience, right? That resource, there's no value to us as designers for that to be a competition, right? I don't think that's added to the game. Competing for something like a Grado world does have implications for the economy, right? Dust Devil's not so much, but more Bandos chestplates coming into the game because we make it instance friendly to literally everybody makes a difference, right? There were potentially more people at Grado at any one moment than there would have been otherwise. So like the competition sometimes puts people off doing content. Now, from a personal player perspective, that's maybe annoying, right? I want to do Grado, but I feel I can't because of this thing that's out of my control because it's too popular. But it does have an economic aspect of it. Lowers demand for the content and thus lowers the supply for Bandos chestplates and drives the price up. So there are implications and things we care about, but competition for resources makes sense in areas like the wilderness, PvP, and so on, where like I feel like it could be a direct part of the gameplay loops involved.
Sure.
In a way that I shouldn't have to hop for a granite world. So like I think there's a time and place for it. But generally, I just don't feel like it makes sense to have as a major part of the game. I don't want to have to hop for mining iron or whatever. Forestry, as an example, the best thing of the forestry update, I know there's lots of mixed opinions on aspects of it, but the best part about it is making trees social, right? Like that. If you take that core part of the update, I think that was
a huge change.
Great, and I still stand by a lot of the concepts that we worked on with forestry, even if we missed some of the execution details. But the core part of it, of making it social, I'm not finding a world by myself. I don't think the game should be full of features where seeing another player makes you want to log out and hop to a different world.
Yeah.
Hence the single player but together thing, right? I want it to be together. I want you to see other people.
That's fair. I wonder how we'd ever end up like actually fixing that though, right? Because I would hate to live in a world, to play in a world where, say for example, the Catacombs of Kieren Dust Devil spot, the NPCs there were unique to you. So you can see other people in your area bursting, but they're bursting nothingness because you can't see their NPCs. That would be weird.
That's a line that goes too far,
Yeah.
I think, right? Like, in theory, maybe you could. We can't with the tech, probably we have, but in theory, that just breaks the world immersion. Like, seeing players interact with the same things is cool. And I think Perilous Moons has this sort of mindset as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of you, that's a social experience. You were fighting the boss independently, but you see other people hitting the same boss at the same time.
Yeah.
That was different. We've never tried something like that before. And I mean, again, credit to Mod Rice for trying to do this and pull it off. It put certain limitations on what we could do and couldn't do. But
it works there, though.
It works,
Yeah.
but it has to be designed with that in mind. Like, you can't just do that to Dust Devils. It just doesn't work, right?
No.
Maybe there is a solution there that we could work out, but
I've been sat
it makes
really
sense with Perilous
conflicted.
Moons.
Like, I'm nostalgic for crashing and anti-crashing. I think it adds to
Yeah.
it adds to like the feeling of your place in the world. But I also recognize that our game has changed a lot since then.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned things like Grador and like preservation of prices. Then I thought, sure, but the collection log and combat achievements has meant that people are just
you have to
even
go there.
even whilst we try and mitigate it as best as possible, even power creep means you just fucking rip straight through,
Yeah.
and then there are tons of chest plates and tacits coming in game anyway.
Thing is, I bloody loved crashing at Brandos. Like, it was the funnest thing to crash masses.
That's the opening clip of the podcast right there. No more context. That's it. You won't
Like,
believe
me
what
and-
Kieren said.
This is like predates old school. This is kind of like 2010, 2011 era. And this is what had a feature called loot share in the game that let you sort of both as a group contribute to winning the sort of DPS race. And me and my friend, we used to take a pair of Dragon Claws and 25 spec regen potions or whatever they were called in our inventories.
Oh my God.
And you'd find a world with like 10, 15 people in it, massing Grador. And if you could double claw spec every kill because you generated enough spec from the potions to do that. Obviously, you can't do that in old school, but we would sit there, we would stand next to the Grador spawn. The masters all scared. They'd be on the western wall, terrified, like, oh, I don't want to get meleeed. Well, we were, braver. You stand next to Grador.
Calculated.
And you would double claw spec. And between two double claw specs, you could often do half the damage. So masses would be incredulous. How are two people beating us? But it was so fun. And you got so many kills so quickly.
I love the idea.
But like, it was fun. But for the most part, I think most people's experience of like crashing and anti-crashing is just competition for spots that don't matter. And it's just, it ends up being a bit toxic and annoying.
I like the moments where I'm like hopping into a world and then I don't crash them and they're like, oh, thanks for not crashing. That makes me feel good.
And then they're like, I've only got like 10 more. You're like, sweet, I want to get a drink. I'll be right back.
Yeah,
And it's all
literally.
yours.
That-
And I do the
that's
same.
nice.
When I finish up my Slayer task, if someone's just hopped, I'll be like, yeah, I'm literally about to finish if you want to wait. And honestly, the interactions you get from that, lovely. And that makes
actually,
me
that's
feel
so
good.
no,
funny.
and it's mine now.
Yeah.
It's the fact that, hey, someone was nice to me. How low
Yeah.
are their expectations when somebody else logs
on
it?
the flip side, though, is like when you are being that nice person, then someone comes in there, they just start attacking and don't say anything, and I'm like, "Do you mind?" ? And then nothing, and I'm just like, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess I am." That happened to me so many times at Nagwa's, which is one of the reasons why I stopped going there because someone would just hop, they would log in, and they'll just start attacking mine. I'm like, "Do you mind?" And they either say no or just ignore me. I'm like, oh, "Okay, all right."
I like just having a single question mark.
I feel like it's also like a societal thing too, where we look at each other as inconveniences as opposed to like people we share a world with. It's like, what do you mean you're trying to go to the same place I'm trying to go to? Get off the road.
Yeah, how dare you?
Why are you in this line that I'm in? Get out.
It's like
my
when a
line.
lorry overtakes on the motorway and you're there then for the next 5 minutes waiting for it to go forward.
I won't ever like apologize for getting mad at lorries.
No, we can't be that. We can't do that, Sween, because there's going to be comments in the video telling us how there are nice lorry drivers, and there are so many nice lorry drivers that will thank me manually after I've let them go past to put the hand out the window or I'll see them in the mirror. I'm like, you're one of the good ones, but man, they have such a bad rep for the bad ones.
I like stuff, and lorries bring stuff. They take stuff and they move stuff. I like that. But M11. I drive that every day to work.
Yep.
It's 2 lanes. It's the start of the day. I haven't had my coffee yet, so I'm there like.
Do you know what we need to do? We need to get a lorry driver on so you can get to know the person behind the wheel.
No, look, I'm sure they're lovely, I understand.
You just don't care, do you?
No.
No.
Because
Okay, well, at least you
put
own
yourself
it.
in
You know
those
what, I
shoes.
love the fact that you own it. I respect that.
Yeah.
I said it's a societal problem, and I'm a part of that problem.
Yeah. If you were driving a truck that was going 61 mile an hour and there was a truck in front of you doing 60, you would want to overtake it.
Definitely. And I'd see some angry dude in the Volkswagen Golf.
And you'd be laughing your head off
behind
about
me.
it.
I'd see myself in the mirror, I'd get fuming.
Oh, I shouldn't have brought up lorries. I'm sorry.
Anyway, so I wanted to get, so that's tons of content. We've approached the content too. How has your role within Jagex changed? I think you were associate design director, now you're design director. It's been about a year and a half since we had you on the podcast. What's changed
For the most
you?
part, at the end of the day, my core job is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I'm in charge of the design team for Old School RuneScape. I've got a bunch of incredible people under me, which make my job straightforward at the end of the day, but generally it's things like when it comes to a project, that a starting point will be working on a project brief that sort of details what we want to try and do with that project, what we want to achieve with it, sort of beats it needs to hit and so on. It might talk a little bit about rewards. It might talk a little bit about the content and how it should maybe play. Sometimes that's more detail, sometimes that's less, depending on the project. And then that'll maybe be iterated with the team and different staff in Old School and so on. And then that team go away and start working on the project. They put a design together. I might have input on that design. We'll help them brainstorm, review what they come out with. I want that to feel as collaborative as possible.
Sure.
If I'm going to be heavily involved. Some projects I'm barely involved.
Yeah.
And there's too many to be involved with all of them. But that's why we have incredible people who are principal designers, lead designers, senior designers who are helping to also be stakeholders on projects and make sure standards are sort of upheld and our thinking behind our design philosophy is present in everything we do. But that's pretty much the same as what it was.
Okay.
And the big difference is wider than just Old School as well, and sort of my role in terms of working with other designers in Jagex, some level of assistance with some RuneScape stuff and helping to coach designers over there and help guide them a little bit more. So it's a bit more wider studio stuff and involvement there, but mostly it's sort of reflective of experience and the level that I'm at more than actually is a job change. I mean, you go back to being lead designer. I've been, the manager of all the designers on Old School for quite a while now.
Yeah.
And so it's really just stepping up through the gears and reflective of what I can do and so on. We're all so different, obviously, being back in the day when I was hands-on working in the content. And like now, it's like I'm satisfied by almost every project we do. I'm somewhat involved in all of them rather than deeply involved with one of them. And so the feeling's a bit different, but it means that, every single launch of every project, I'm like, oh, this is exciting. And it brings me satisfaction seeing how well the team manage these projects and seeing a lot of details that, I'm not aware of every single detail on the project now. So it's a different experience when I go and play it now. I'm like, ooh, I didn't notice this bit. I didn't know about that
The joy of first time experience.
Yeah, so you get a bit of that. Well, I know generally the direction and what we're trying to cover with it. And I see lots of debate in the community sometimes, when it's speaking about me directly, like, oh, when Mod Kieren was working on content, we got, he did the Inferno and so on. But like, and now everyone's like, well, Mod Kieren doesn't work on content. We'd love him to work on a piece of content again. But like, I'm not convinced that I could go sit there and produce something that feels like the Inferno again and stuff anyway. I think I can understand people jumping to these sort of conclusions, but like, I actually do think this is the best place to be where I can help make sure all of the things we do are achieving what we want to achieve. All these pillars, single player but together, the permanence of progression and all these sort of things are so important. Even things like respecting people's time is a pillar. I always think it sounds incredulous because this game demands so many hours from you, right? You need, if you want to max, I don't know what the efficient hours to max are off the top of my head, but most people are playing 100+ real life days before they're even close to maxing. It's a long time, right? Most games. How many games do you put 100 days of playtime into? No. Not many. It's, if you play in an MMO, generally you're playing one, and that's the sort of game you're going to put that more sort of time into. But that is why it's so important for us to respect the time people are investing already. And so that's why I want to avoid things that reset daily, reset weekly, these sort of things where you feel like come a little chore like. It feels like you're being sort of begged to log in every day.
Yep.
I want players to log into old school RuneScape because they want to log in and play old school RuneScape. And when a game you play over the course of, I mean, I've been playing the game nearly 20 years now. Like, you're playing over that length of time. It's natural that you're going to have breaks from time to time and so on. And I'd love for you to play literally every day. But when a game demands this much time from you, I understand life's going to have different things coming at you. You might want to play Zelda, right? A Zelda game drops. All right, I'm going to step away from old school for a couple of weeks. And then I might come back. That's fine. And I don't want to use sort of false incentives to encourage you to play. I have mixed opinions about the farming skill because of the nature of the time aspect to it. But that kind of fills that entire space up for me. I don't think the game has much room for more. Like, if we had a bunch of other things that reset on a clock like that, which feel like, oh, I need to do my farm run today, I think it'd be too much. We've got a whole skill that's based around it, and it actually makes sense thematically with farming.
It's also
I regret birdhouses, for example, in a similar mindset, and I wish we had balanced them way less generously. Could we change it? Maybe. maybe we should tackle birdhouses. I think it's a really tricky one to balance because it's almost the core of the skill at this point. You know, most people level their sort of, you know, you get level 9 from the old quiz at the museum. And then you basically, as soon as you can, you're doing birdhouses, and you probably keep up the birdhouse runs until you're 70, 80 plus hunter, and then you stop caring about doing like red chin jumpers or your Varlam or hunter guild tasks, or you go to herbivore and stuff. But that we saw it. We're like, this is where the power of data and so on is so useful for the game, because we can ask players and we can anecdotally have an opinion on what things are like. But with Hunter, the wonderful analytics team built this graph that goes from across the levels 1 to 99, and then the distribution of training methods people are doing at that level. And so you can see this actually borne out. You can see, like, from levels 1 to 9, it's like 90% is the museum. And then it was like 75% of XP gained between up to like level 80 plus was birdhouses. And so we go back way to an earlier conversation around the sort of having options within skills. I want multiple valid options within skills, right? You know, most of the skills have that now, right? Rune crafting, Zero rune crafting, Garners of the Rift, traditional rune crafting, ZMI. Like, there's a distribution of options, which is good because it caters to different people with different wants and needs. But when one method, and it's not like Hunter doesn't have other options, but when one method is so overtuned, it's so good to be doing birdhouses. The effective XP rate's so high, you get all the other resources out of it. It doesn't demand that much from you. Hunter at its core could probably still do some quality of life, so that adds to it as well. Everyone's choosing to do birdhouses because it's so good. It represents probably a bit of a failing in the rest of the skill, and birdhouses being too strong. People's desire for rewards and XP overpowers maybe making the most fun choices most of the time. If two methods are close, you'll make a decision based on what you're going to enjoy more. But yeah, should we fix birdhouses? I mean, what do you guys think? I think it's a difficult conversation because it's so ingrained in the process.
I've been sat here thinking the entire time. I think ultimately, we shipped Fossil Island in September. So it's been 8 years, maybe nearly to the day. We're recording this in September currently. I feel like it's too far gone. And if we're using that same logic, I would then say, would you want to go and change the XP rewards for the Knight Sword? I imagine if you look at the smithing graph, if ADSC were to do the same thing, it'd be like that. Waterfall quest, like combat stuff. And I look at least Fossil Island encourages you to get some grinds done out of the way.
Yeah.
A bit of questing. I hate getting kudos on like a new account. Oh my gosh. But at least you get that done so then you can go and do your birdhouses. So whilst it isn't ideal, I almost feel like leave it there as a reminder of what not to do again in the future, but don't really touch it. Yeah. Would probably be the way I'd go about it.
Sometimes this is kind of, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, we end up leaving things. And the time to fix birdhouses was week one
Yeah.
of launch, right?
It definitely was. I mean, there were some changes that were made to them in the the first month. I remember working through them at the time, but they were mostly around rewards, and we knew that the XP was like way too high at the time. And I mean, I think if I could go back, I would be pushing harder for them to have been changed. But I would say that I would agree with Sween now that it's a little bit too far gone. And also, you mentioned it yourself, right? Is that the variety in Hunter was vast, but the methods were, for the most part, not fun. Yeah. Right. I really enjoy doing falconry. I like doing kebbit hunting. I like the click intensity of it. It feels fun to do. But why would I bother when I can just do birdhouses that are better? Right. That now is a question of like, this is more enjoyable, but this is going to mean that I can go off and do so many other things whilst that carries on doing it. And I really don't want to have to put my team through dealing with the backlash of changing birdhouses now.
Oh, I mean, this is the thing. This is why it's so hard. And we recently changed the drop rates at Tombs of a Mascot.
Yes.
And prices of like the Fang were quite low, and we wanted to improve that, and so on. Lots of people ask the same question, right? Why didn't we act sooner? It's a similar feeling of like worry that players will have a lot of backlash to it. It's a difficult conversation. Anybody who's watching, I'm sure, has seen the big Reddit discussions, Twitter discussions, and so on about any time we try to do something like this. We've made a lot of nerfs over the years, things like Blowpipe, Void, and so on. It's always difficult, but in an essence, I'm like, we need to do the right thing for the long-term future of the game, always. I believe every update we should do should be making the game better as an entire package to someone who's discovering it today. And the debate is like, do you keep ignoring the problem whilst it's doing damage, or do you fix it and rip the band-aid off and make the change? I think the two cases are a bit different though, right? The Fang being 10 mil, 5 mil, however low it might have gone, is damaging.
Yep.
That is actively causing problems in the game, right? The whole ecosystem. Again, come back to the pillars. Your achievement should matter. It disrespects your achievement earning this item that costs 5 mil if then you log back in and your item's now worthless because the Osmond's Fangs come down to the same price and is drastically more powerful. That is disrespectful to the money you've earned. Generally, I don't like, as much as a player in economy, I don't think it's a good thing when a load of people buy an item for 100 mil and a couple of years later it's worth 10. Like, I do want to try and keep preserving people's item value a little bit better than that, right?
There's definitely a better balance, right?
Yeah. I don't want to control the prices, but we do control supply and demand, and we can affect that based on what bosses are weak to stab, what, the drop rates are, and all these sort of things contribute to that. Coming back to birdhouses, they're not actually causing damage, right? There's no ultimate damage as a result of that. Maybe the game would be more fun if it was different, and you'd go and do other things. And you'd have options that are more valid to you.
Rumors now,
but at the end of the day, it's fine. At the end of the day, people just get their hunter level up, and that's okay. But you're right. Rumors have already made the picture a lot better than it was. And there's reasons to do rumors that aren't solely XP as well. So that adds to that. And I love having stuff that feels like you're getting the XP passively. When Varlamore first came out, I went and did a bunch of rumors to get the Quetzal feed so I could build the Varlamore Quetzal sites.
Nice.
I couldn't buy it being an Iron Man. And that felt satisfying that I just got a bunch of Hunter XP as a byproduct.
Yeah. I think this whole topic is actually huge. And earlier on, I wanted to bring it into the conversation, but I didn't want to interrupt because there were just so many fantastic things being mentioned. But we've talked about the preservation of people's time and the game also demanding quite a lot of time from you. We've also mentioned the fact that changing drop rates, changing XP rates after the fact is always very difficult. And I think that goes back into this notion of protecting people's time. But on the flip side, and this is the context originally, I'm sorry if I'm going a little bit all over the place with it, so hopefully you can get to the point that I'm trying to make, is when you were talking about RuneCraft, right? And you were talking about how we want to preserve people's achievements, which is why if you went back and looked at RuneCraft now in the lens of where it would be in the future, you'd probably want to increase the XP rates, but we're not going to do that drastically because of it. And then there's this meme that gets brought up quite consistently, which I think portrays it really well, which is like, everyone else has to suffer because I suffered too, right? and it all comes collectively, whether it's changing XP rates, changing drop rates, removing an item from a drop table and placing it somewhere else, it all forms part of what that core, the feeling that meme is like driven from. And I'm just wondering, in terms of like how you actually feel about that, because I wouldn't be so mad if we needed to increase RuneCraft XP rates, because I get it. People that got 99 that did the really slow methods, like I think this is taking me back to the very first live stream I was ever on, and I got absolutely slated for it.
You stayed up all night.
Yeah,
saying,
I know.
Sorry,
I didn't sleep for 2 days.
I know what you're saying. I also want to jump in, like RuneCraft specifically. We were very, very careful not to change XP rates for quite a long time, not because of I suffered social due, but also because of the highest XP rate you get in RuneCraft required a lot of very precise clicks and skill expression through lavas and stuff. And I think a lot of the reason we didn't want to change that, less so because of this is how it's always been, and then that would undermine people's achievements. But we can't make an easier method that will be way less click intensive. Of course, it's going to be. That gives more XP. I mean, in hindsight, it could have bumped the lava rates up. But don't know. I just want to add that. Anyway.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I mean, I wasn't even trying to get into the point of like, we absolutely should increase it. It's more around the general notion of like a reason why maybe we may not have. That's another reason, which is a really good one to add into. But yeah, this whole notion of like, do you think that design pillar of respecting people's achievements and the time that they've spent can sometimes get in the way of good design decisions?
There's a balance to it, right? And I think like the RuneCraft example probably represents one that's on the other side of that line. It's too much. It's too difficult to change that. And it's going to mean so many questions that need answering with respect to value and respecting people's achievements and time that has gone into it. That's ultimately when people, this I suffered, so you have to, which is, in a sense, felt. It's not, it's as much as it's a meme and people joke about it, and especially in that context, it sounds like that's absolutely the wrong thing, but it is a true feeling that people get. And it stems from like, I got my max cape, and you go back 10 years, max cape was talked about. It's obviously this prestigious achievement, getting max, and RuneCraft was the hardest one to get up because the XP rates, unless you were doing lavas, were really low.
Or you had millions and billions of money and just paid people to run Essence.
Paid people to run for you, and also on. People who have the max cape want it to remain prestigious, right? It should feel like this achievement. It's inevitably going to get easier over time. It's about the rate we get it. It gets easier over time because obviously we do release new methods. Sometimes it's just the method is more fun. It's literally lower XP. It might be even more intense, but it's just more fun. And so even it being fun and not awful is like a gateway to more people getting max. Does that make it feel less prestigious? I think it's just the balance of the argument. And each individual, it's a case-by-case basis. I don't think there's a single answer. Like we should always say, screw it, you suffered, but I don't want anybody else to suffer. Generally, obviously, we want to minimize that going forward. And we do want to make changes where it makes sense, but there's a line to that. We can't rip up absolutely everything and fully change it. I think like stuff like Night Sword, just on that example, I actually think that's a good thing. Night Sword and stuff. I like having quests that feel like they're cheating progression.
Oh, definitely.
Because yes, I can't imagine us boldly releasing a quest today that introduces an XP reward that takes you from level 1 to 29 or whatever it is in another skill that doesn't have that today. That'd be really bold, but maybe that on a slightly smaller scale. I think it's great because this progression network, it gives you routing options, and like we know there's so much value in having awesome routing options that feel like you're getting a leg up for being smart. You want that,
especially smithing too. Imagine like the tin and the copper, and then having to suffer through, because presumably at that point you haven't got the rings. You don't quite have access to a lot of rubies and the magic level. You can't enchant the ring of forging. So then you're suffering through just burning iron away. It's
so
nice to be able to
first time playing the game. That's what we did because you didn't know any better. But as you just said there, Kieren, it's like you get rewarded for having knowledge, and that's what those kind of things do. I really like that.
And that is a good thing. That adds to the socialness of the game, right? I like. There's a whole debate around. I mean, we got the wiki on these screens. The wiki's amazing, like actually incredible. What we've got with the wiki and the team that do it. Well, obviously phenomenal, and the game probably wouldn't be where it is without such a great resource. The debate around something like the wiki is no game should be a wiki game. I should be able to get all the info from in the game. I mean, in a sense, you can, but when you can present the information in a much more accessible way, searchable, editable by the community. You've got strategies for bosses, all that stuff. We are never going to be able to compete with that level of information and putting it in the game.
No, it'd feel really
the complexity in routing is so vast, right? You need that experience of other people putting ideas forward on which thing should I do in what order to feel like I'm being somewhat efficient. And so you're right. I mean, we all noobs once upon a time. We went and mined tin and copper and then suffered through burning half my iron. It is painful. The point is there's a satisfaction. You see this in not just old school, but lots of games where it feels like you're kind of sequence breaking, but it's intentional, right? Being able to do Night Sword and get 29. It feels good as a player of a video game to feel like you're getting a leg up on the designers. And that's how it kind of feels, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've just skipped all that stuff. It feels good. We want questing to be important, and XP is one of the major ways we can do that, is skipping through some of the levels. I did that back in 2007. I remember pulling up the documents on like which quests give XP in this this skill, because I'm
They've been
like,
around forever.
man, I need 60 agility, but the idea of doing a bunch more laps on the options back then, which were even more limited,
Actually, not been
like I'm going to get as much XP I can without bloody doing more laps. That's a good thing for the game. It enhances all the parts of the game enhance each other, and they need to do that. Quests can do that in small ways like XP, or bigger ways like unlocking new areas, new content. Like a quest can help you for agility by unlocking a new course. It can also help you for agility by giving you 20k XP. And all of our quests do all of this stuff. So
Can we add a new skip for Kudos for Sween's Little Iron Man?
I've done it.
Oh, you already got it.
No,
Okay.
Yeah, now I don't have to suffer. For
Yeah, no.
no, it was fine.
Touche. I like it.
The biggest thing was actually, I think there was one find that wasn't properly listed on the wiki, or I was just misreading. I was just being silly. That's probably what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it was improved recently. I remember doing it in the league, and it was nowhere near as insufferable as when I
we
did
made
it the first time
way
around.
better.
there's a UI that tells you what you haven't done. And I'm pretty sure that didn't used to exist. There was no way to know what you had and hadn't done unless you remembered. So it is a lot better now. But this is the other thing with progression, right? We can have so-called like unfun parts of the game, right? Getting Kudos, bit of a grind, bit tedious perhaps, and there's plenty of other examples in the game.
In contrast, I've done way worse grinds. It was fine. It was a
Yeah,
couple of
yeah.
hours. It was not a big problem at all.
And, you know, something like even getting 50, 60, 70 agility, thousands of laps in a circle. A lot of people don't find that fun. But once you've done it, you have the benefit of that skill forever. It doesn't go away. You got that grind down to 99, you never have to touch it again. And it feels great because you've got the skills, you're getting the benefit to run energy and everything else you need from a skill. So the value of progression being permanent makes these grinds feel so much more worthwhile, and that's why it feels so satisfying. You know, when you get max game and people joke about I could finally play the game for real. The element that's true to that is like I never need to do these skills ever again. Like I am done. That's why it feels great, because you've accomplished that grind. So like as much as there's parts of it you probably found tiring or boring because you've done it for so many hours, it's still worth it. It still feels great, and the structure of the entire game makes that true.
Sure. And I think it's obviously we got into this conversation mainly through like birdhouses.
Bit of tangents.
No,
we're like that network of nodes of
exactly.
old school content progression.
And I think ultimately it comes down to what you mentioned earlier, which is if there was a time to change that, it would have been right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for everything we do. Because I think there are now like two conflicting schools of thought when we release new content. And it could be overtuned, in which case...
Abuse early often.
Abuse often.
Or wait 2 weeks.
Or it's undertuned, in which case wait for them to fix it. So we have to get it perfect, or players will inevitably fall into those two camps. But we can't, it's really hard to get around that unless I don't know.
I would really love it if we were given a little bit more. And this is like, I'm not saying this in a complaint because I fully understand why players feel and say the things that they do.
Yeah.
But I would love it if we were given just a little bit more leeway when it came to releases to just get that right, because it is so difficult to get it right straight away. And as Kieran's kind of mentioned here, is that if we don't get it right and then we don't change it, it can get to a point where it's just embedded itself so far in that it's almost impossible then to go back and change it, but it's actually unhealthy for the game. So yeah, maybe there'll be one time where we do get it right, bang on. I just don't ever see it happening because I don't think we should get it right. I don't think we can even.
No, you need to react to what players are doing and player trends. But I also feel like a big part of it is because they're like a big launch.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do when a cool game launches or some new content
You want to
launches?
rush out and go do it.
And you take time off work. You
Yeah.
take time away from school. You say to your partner, I'm sorry, I'm going to be playing RuneScape for days.
Mm-hmm.
And then to feel like you've done it in a way that wasn't optimal, and then it would have been if you waited 2 weeks, that kind of sucks.
It does. So I completely get it. I completely compel with everyone and understand. I would just love it if, there was maybe a tiny little bit more leeway
We
before
could get the understanding. The community can understand it's hard.
Oh,
It's not easy to get it right.
They all understand.
And everyone understands that. At the same time, they can ask us to try and get it right more often.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, we're trying. We are trying. And sometimes it comes out over-tuned, sometimes it comes under-tuned. So we've changed our philosophy ourselves sometimes. Do we feel like it's better to release weak and buff or release too strong and nerf? And sometimes we'll say, let's try and make it too weak and it ends up over-tuned, right? Like, it's just, it is difficult. And best will in the world, we will try and endeavor to be better and change our playtesting processes, change how we approach balancing, get more data, all these other things. But nothing can ever match the power of having 200,000 players jump in and give something a go, right? 200,000 people is so many. We can't do that level of playtesting. We've got designers thinking about what's in the code. We can mathematically model things. Every drop table, we've got an extensive spreadsheet. We're then having to estimate how many kills an hour do we think are possible and so on. And it's not necessarily easy to always do that. Something I am asking for us to start doing a bit more directly is just assume no one misses hits on a boss, right? So you got DPS calcs. So assume you're permanently attacking a boss and you're not ever healing, you're never missing hits. How long does a kill take, right? And presume players will get that good. Now that sounds straightforward, but it's still complex when you've got mechanics that boost damage. Like, how do you do the wardens at Toa where you've got the whole phases, the drop, like you got to really work this out. It does take effort to then get a time as a result of that. And obviously that time would then represent like the average if it's based on your DPS. And sometimes you're going to kill it faster, sometimes slower. But working that out and having that number to hand rather than leaning probably a bit more on time trialing and having people do it, which is dependent on strategy. The point of doing a DPS calc, basically imagine somebody's got 1,000 health and you do 100 DPS. 10 seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can do that maths. That avoids all strategizing and so on. The part of strategizing it does include is which gear is best. But that stuff we're generally pretty decent at. We know what the defenses are. We know in theory then what the best weapon is. So stuff like that, I think we can level up and make better. So we can make these things better and we can do slightly better than we have. But there is no world where we're going to get this nailed on every single time. Like something like the price of a new item. That's generally what we're worried about, right? A new item comes into the game. It's an awesome upgrade to some slot. We're very conscious of what it's worth in contrast to the existing options. For the most part, progression for a main account is based on money.
Yeah.
There's not many untradables. So you going from like, I don't know, a blowpipe to a bowfer to a twisted bow. Obviously, they all have a utility regardless. You want all three eventually, but generally, there's a tree there, right? Blowpipe's not worth very much. Bowfer's worth a decent amount. Twisted bow's worth a ton. The stuff gating you from just getting the twisted bow immediately is not your range level, right? By the time you're getting a twisted bow, the 85 range requirement or whatever it is, it's irrelevant, right? For the most part, you're 90 plus range. You're getting that as fast as you can. So the stuff stopping you from just using the best weapon immediately is money. If the twisted bow is coming into the economy too fast and it encroaches on the value of the other items, that progression hierarchy is just broken. There are things out of our control, though. So, like, if a boss is really popular, we released, I don't know, I'm just going to name an example, like we released Yama.
Yeah.
The thing we can't guess very well is how many people are going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
How many people do it dictates how many of those drops come into the game. So we can model kill times. We could even nail that. But if the boss is 3 times more popular than we thought it was going to be,
there's 3 times more.
There's 3 times more drops coming into the game.
Yeah.
That's going to affect the price. That's really difficult to account for. And I want to generally let supply and demand do their talking as best as we can. But to most players, it feels wrong for items to be rarer because the boss is just popular, right? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You're looking at it as if you look at it from a single player mindset, as an Iron Man, for example, the power of that reward is the only thing that really should dictate how hard it is to get or how rare it is.
You want to feel like you're going to get a chance of getting the drop, because obviously the better you are at the game, you're going to get way more kills per hour. And if you're kind of middling, then it's going to feel pretty crap if you might just go a little bit dry on it too.
100%. There's always competing forces at the end of the day that make getting drops right difficult. The needs of an Iron Man are obviously quite different to the needs of a main, and the difference based on your skill level for a boss. Our needs from the macroeconomy sense are very different to what an individual player might actually care about as well. You just want to feel like the drop rate's fair for the power of the reward generally. And sometimes if that drop rate is fair, but yet the price is plummeting because there's so many people doing the boss, we still probably need to do something. The worst scenarios are when bosses drop multiple things, really. And most bosses do. It's expected. You want to be able to get multiple things from a single boss. When a boss drops one thing, and let's say it's just a new weapon, the boss drops this weapon at like 1 in 500 or something. If the value of that weapon drops, an amount of people might decide this boss isn't worth my time anymore, right? The GP per hour from this boss is dropped. I'm going to hold off. If enough people hold off, the price would go back up because the supply drops. In theory, that's, simplifying it to a mega level. It's just supply and demand, right? But when a boss drops multiple things, let's say you got a weapon that's the sort of top rare item. It's going to be worth the most in theory. That's the chase item. But you've got another item that drops at the same drop rate. It was even more common and it's lesser powerful. That lesser powerful item might drop to 0 gold. But the desire to do that boss is still driven by the top item. And so that second item's coming in so passively into the economy. There's no inherent choice about whether I do this content or not based on its price. It contributes maybe a little bit, but the big chase item is the main reason you're doing it. That second item's price can just tank. The Fang is the best example of this, right? People are chasing the shadow. It's quite rare. For every shadow that comes into the game, you get a lot more Fangs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if the Fang's worthless, which it was heading that way, I'm still doing tour. And so there's the supply and demand part just kind of breaks. So how do we handle that?
You're right. And
There's no easy way to handle it.
That's just chasing like items for money. And not even really touching on things like collection log and pet hunting. How much of an impact do you think like collection logging has on pricing generally?
I don't know. I mean, everyone kind of likes the collection log, right? Whether you're going for collection log slots
super
or
cool.
not, it feels really nice. Mm-hmm. I'm not sat there trying to get as many slots completed as possible.
Sorry, I was just doing C engineer voice. I can't help it. I have problems.
But it feels good, right?
Yeah, it does.
When C engineer says that, you feel satisfaction, you feel dopamine.
And again, clan broadcast, everyone cheers for you. It's
totally. You green log something, even if I'm not a so-called clogger.
Yeah.
I'm happy about it. It absolutely probably ups the demand on every piece of content and makes non-economic reasons to do it. For the most part, though, people who are going for collection log, money's probably no object anyway. You're at the point where you've got most of the gear upgrades. You might have some to still obviously go and get, but for the most part, you're not just there to get richer and richer and richer. You're doing it. And a lot of the time, people are choosing content to do just based off what they fancy doing.
Yeah.
Like, do I do Tob or do I do Toa today? Well, it just depends on which friends are online, which friends I want to hang out with, what I fancy doing, and you'll just vary it up. I don't think it's that often you're saying, oh, Toa is this million gold per hour and Tob is this million gold an hour, and I'm going to make the decision based on that. Maybe some people do, but managing the economy is a humongous challenge when it comes to these drops. And obviously, it's not just drops, it's skilling resources, all these other things that are part of that. And it's something we've put probably more effort into the last few years in terms of analyzing it from a data perspective and so on. I don't want to go too deep into it, but like, should we have inflation in the value of gold? Well, probably to some level. I don't know what the wisdom necessarily is in real life, but you might have wisdom that says like inflation in real life should be 2%. What should it be in old school? I don't know how to answer that question. That's quite a difficult thing to comprehend. You need economists. You need people to genuinely almost study this from a research perspective. The needs in real life are also very different to the needs in a video game. You want to play the video game. You want to be able to upgrade your gear. You want to be able to buy the things you need eventually. And it wants to feel fair for the way you're progressing through the game. That is more important. Which is very different to I can afford to buy food for my family, right? Like, it's totally different situations.
Yeah, you don't want people being like, oh no, the interest rate really sucks. I don't know if I can shadow.
Then next it'll be everyone's going to start filling out their own self-tax forms in old school. Yeah.
But what I tell you, what feels bad is I buy a shadow for $2 and then I log off for a few weeks, then I come back and it's $1, right? Yeah. We all know that feels terrible.
Bad. Yeah.
And so this is the sort of thing that ends up mattering.
No, that's true. I want to ask something that it's like a concept. Okay. I want to see your view on it. And I'm just going to say that I'm not saying that I support this concept. It's just for discussion purposes.
I like how this is becoming so this should be a feature now, because I think you've done it on every podcast so far.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. What is my controversial take?
Last time.
Yeah, looking for group. So what about a world in Gielinor where Iron Men have different drop rates compared to mains, but the items are bound to them? They can never be off that account. You can't drop trade it. If you do, it disappears. But it's different to a main, so that it's not PK'd? Balanced around economy. If they get PK'd, something to consider. I didn't think that far ahead.
Man's just dropped his controversial opinion, and we're left to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, I mean, also as well. I mean, in reality, how many Iron Men are actually out there PKing? I know they get PK'd.
Well, that's what I mean. They get PK'd. Yeah.
So
but no, you're right. I think the thing is, when someone goes, "I've got this thing," instantly, in my mind at least, maybe I'm just a bit of an arsehole, I go, how can I break this down?
Yeah. No, that's a good thing. That's why we work together so well, right? It's like that's what we're meant to do, and that's what the players would do too. Like, it's not thought out. I'm just, as a general, because you mentioned around how, if we're looking to balance items, one of the levers that we have to pull on is economy. But an Iron Man, in theory, an Iron Man's drop rates should not be affected by a main getting the items too fast to make the items worth less, because it's about how many hours you're spending on that character. So if you've got a 100-hour grind to get a particular reward, and now suddenly there are 50,000 mains that are doing it, that makes it so that we've now got to make that grind a 140-hour grind to compensate for the fact that too many are coming into the game. Well, it was actually balanced well enough around the Iron Man spending 100 hours. Why do they now have to suffer more? So it's like,
I get the logic. The logic is there.
The original of like what do you think about it?
Yeah. I mean, the original wisdom when Iron Man first launched 2014 is like, we should never make design decisions for Iron Man.
Yeah, but that was never going to stick, was it?
And their thinking is, no, you signed up to play the game in this more brutal way. You need to suffer and experience what a game designed for multiplayer. And economy and so on as a single player. But that's not obviously something we've stuck to. And I think there's still plenty of people who think that should be the stance in the team. There's players in the community who think that. And for the most part, it probably does uphold. But this is where you feel the pressure, right? Drop rates and so on have implications. Things that are definitively driven to be economically driven. Like, again, I'm just naming an example. I want to get back to the core question. But something like blood runes, charging a scythe, charging a sang, right? Yep. We've been back and forward on this stuff. We've made changes. We've got the thing where you can go and essentially buy runes via rune crafting. The scar, yeah. So we've done things that help solve that problem. But in an economy, I don't need to be able to self-sufficiently get myself enough blood runes to power an item.
Yeah.
I don't need to be able to self-sufficiently get enough Ranor weed so I can have potions to do PVM with. In an Iron Man world, you kind of end up feeling that you have to. But for a main, as long as the collective community generates enough blood runes and I can economically buy them on the Grand Exchange, I'm fine. I don't need to get, the 10,000 blood runes I need to power my stuff and move on with my day. But for an Iron Man, you need a direct way to get it. Getting a lot of gems is a nightmare, right? Like, how do you get 5,000 diamonds as an Iron Man? We've had things since that obviously make this easy, more easy. Not necessarily for Iron Man, but we've got things like gem bags, certain activities that drop a decent amount of them now. But historically, they were a nightmare to get in large quantities. As a main, no problem. I buy them on the GE and it progressively fills my offer.
I think in the past,
we've had to change our thinking, I think, to make sure the Iron Man experience isn't, not impossible, but
less insufferable.
Really suffering. A load of people love playing the game that way.
Yeah.
And enjoy it regardless of this stuff being softened in different ways, because it's the feeling of the gear upgrades and managing to solve the herb lore problems and stuff. Certain skills are way more tricky on Iron Man than others. But getting your gear upgrades feels obviously inherently more satisfying in an Iron Man just because of the nature you've had to earn that.
I think a lot of people, not so much me anymore, but when I was younger and I was kind of enamored by like what the magic of RuneScape was, I loved that people played a part in the economy. Herb lore, pre-farming sucked, but there were some valiant souls who would just go and kill Chaos Druids for ages and ages, and they brought all the herbs into the game and they brought the potions into the game. Similarly, there were people rune crafting, and they provided that. If it wasn't for them, people wouldn't be casting spells. And I love the idea of that. If I picture my like dream MMO, it's some weird like mix of like Sword Art Online crap with people playing their part in an economy, but that sucks in real life.
It does, yeah. Reality.
Some people try, like some games try and make that magic happen. I really loved playing Arcage for the first few months of launch, and then it kind of just descended for other reasons, get around design and like monetization and stuff. But that idea is still magical to me. But I just don't think it can. I think today's playing trends and play habits have changed so much that it doesn't really work anymore.
I mean, I've mentioned it already, but the fact that like one of the pillars is single player but together now,
Exactly.
like I think we've accepted that that's become a bit more the way people think about the game.
Yeah.
And that also does embrace Iron Man a bit naturally.
Mm-hmm.
I think you think of any other MMO, Iron Man probably doesn't work quite as well as it does for us. I think the game's almost, there's so many ways it's built to be fairly single player, and Iron Man just works so well. There's a reason that blew up with creators initially, and single man, one man army, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
It obviously turned into actual mode, but it feels like it fits the game so well. There's very few changes we've had to make Iron Man just work.
I think obviously we're not. Some people might say we're a sandbox. Other people say no, you're not. But we kind of sit on that side of things. But I do think like the two real major theme park MMOs like Final Fantasy 14 and World of Warcraft, you can play those as kind of iron, right? Like you're doing boss encounters and raids and stuff with them, and then you're having to get items through that. But other sandbox games, no, I don't think really work as iron.
Yeah, the only other game that I know that has a good like iron mode experience is Path of Exile. You do solo self-found, and like for me personally, and I should have maybe mentioned this when I asked you the question, which I still want to hear your answer to. By the way, I know we'll get there, but it's like for me, I personally believe that the Iron Man experience should have been maintained as that hardcore kind of like, yes, it's gritty, it's difficult, it's prestigious because of the difficulty. I personally don't like when we make changes to make Iron Mode easier, because I wanted that. I was talking at the very start of the podcast about, like I've got an achievement. I want people to be like, wow, look at that. You've done something. You're insane, or you're really stupid, right? That's the joy I get out of doing it. That's why I'm playing the online games. However, I would be absolutely idiotic to turn around and say that if we hadn't made those changes, the game would still be where it is today. Like we've had to. Old School would not be as popular and as successful had we not made Iron Man more forgiving in the sense of, or even not even forgiving is the word, but just make it so that it's actually more of a cohesive experience. Because there were clear flaws in the way that you had to go about it. So like I'm saying this as a person who's a proponent of not changing it. I like the difficulty aspect of it. I like the fact that, you can't fill your scythe up with all the blood runes without doing 10 hours of rune crafting to use your scythe for 1 hour. Granted, I've also not sat there and used the scythe as an Iron Man to know what the pain and experience of it is. But in my head, I think that is what the true Iron Man experience is to me. But I know that that's not the reality, again, of what it's actually making fun gameplay, making it worthwhile. So there's that. I want to actually, what is everyone else's opinion on it? Where do you stand in terms of the changes for Iron Man?
I think I'm happy with the changes we made.
Cool.
Generally, if I'm to simplify, I want it to feel cohesive. It's a very intentional part of the game, and it feeling like something I can genuinely just play and experience. And let's be honest, as much as it might have softened, it's still the brutal way to play.
Oh, for sure.
It's still a lot more to it. There's a lot more to it, and a lot more effort that has to go in. you have to use your game knowledge in a deeper way and so on than you do as a main, right? For most skills in the game that most of the production skills, you just use the G to buy.
Yep.
You buy some late game gear, you get a blowpipe really early. Like these things help you so much. And it's very difficult in our shoes, and probably for a lot of people listening who've played the game an awfully long time. You know these things like the back of your hand. You've experienced Iron Man at this point. But you go back and imagine playing it from scratch. Like Iron Man is a lot more difficult than playing a main game, and it still is.
Yeah.
Even if that level's come down a bit. Yeah. What about you, Sween?
I think I generally am supportive of the changes we've made. I think you've used a lot of ways to describe it. I think if we're being brutally honest, casual friendly, but it's still, like Kieren mentioned, it's still not casual. It's just more casual friendly, and that's added to the popularity of the game mode, and that's added to the popularity of the game itself. There are tons of different little changes I would make. Like I keep coming back to RuneCraft. I just find it weird that it's called RuneScape, and some of the early quests are around runes. What? And then it's just, dude, why are you surprised? You sell rune packs. Why are you so crazy? Like an air talisman. Like, dude,
the one time you told me about that, actually, we went on a big, massive tangent, just going down that.
But that's just a tiny moment of it. That's just a little bit. That's a little bit of narrative you can easily overlook.
Where did they come from?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah.
Do you know what I love though is that I think it's one of the things that makes that old school team so special is that there are multiple people with different opinions, and even for myself as someone who would prefer, in my head at least, to have that true nitty gritty Iron Man experience, I'm still supportive of the changes that we've made, and I still will look to make sure that the people who want to see those changes made have their voices heard. And there are many times where I've had to argue with people internally about how it doesn't matter what you want as an individual, because it's not your game, it's everyone's game. And we have to keep that in mind. And for me personally, it helps. I like having like a differing opinion, because it makes me see the side. It's like, it reminds me of when Sween was trying to pick at the point of the whole bound items idea. Is it makes for a good discussion as long as people are approaching it in a healthy way. So I'm saying it because I don't want to get the wrong impression across in that any one individual, whether it be me, Kieren, Sween, or someone else in the team, is like a blocker for changes because they have a different opinion. We're all very well versed in approaching suggestions and feedback with different opinions and feedback in mind, because
we have these discussions on everything.
Yeah. And I have conflicting opinions and stuff. You mentioned the Scythe as an Iron Man earlier around like the blood rune changes. Part of me at the time felt like, well, yeah, okay, it's up to you to manage your resources. If you want to use the Scythe, you have to use your blood runes, and that's on you. And the other part is you hear them say, well, I've just got the Scythe on my iron. That's crazy. I want to use it. And you're like, yeah, fair enough. He wants to use the iron. Let him use the iron. Let him use the Scythe.
That's exactly it, right?
So you contradict myself. And I think opinions change and opinions grow, and that's fine.
Yeah, to me with the Scythe one, it's like shops have already have blood runes, right? Shops have always had blood runes. You can buy them pretty darn fast, but you can't because it's busy. That was the core of the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
People used to world hop.
It's not fun going to shops and world hopping for it, but like you can do that. You can hop for half an hour and just find empty stock in all the worlds. Like competition for resources, is that a good thing? It's Iron Man. Like, why is this even part of it? There's so complex, and like at the end of the day, the Scar Essence mine is kind of a shop with extra steps, but it does give you a benefit to your runecrafting skill. It's like a shop that has runecrafting requirements in a way.
Sure.
It's like the sandstone grinder as well, right? That was in response to the fact that people had to just buy sand from shops because it was way better than filling up buckets of sand.
Like, they are obviously Iron Man focused updates. Like, there's not really any incentive for a main account to sometimes deal with them. But to be honest, there are sometimes mains who play a bit Iron Man-y. So there are plenty of people who do that. Just because you can go to the G doesn't mean people do. I did some really stupid stuff when I was playing my first ever account. I was getting level 80 in all the skills back in like 2007. And I decided, all right, to get the smithing, I need to mine 20k iron and 20k coal or whatever it was. And I mined it all myself. I don't know why.
And then you presumably
and then I smithed it all.
Yeah.
I turned it into steel plate bodies, and then I alched them all with natures I'd crafted by myself.
You were actually so advanced back in then. Like you had it thought out, mate. That was like,
I thought out the whole plan.
Yeah.
But there was no way it was efficient. I got 99 magic by using chaos gauntlets and casting bolt spells at metal dragons the entire time.
Oh yeah, dude.
Why did I do that? Don't know. The idea that I could make some extra money by
Yeah,
getting
on the
draconic
side,
visages
yeah.
on the way.
Why
You might
not?
want delayed
And
drops and stuff,
using the
yeah.
gauntlets to save resources.
I
There's
splashed
no
on
way
people
this
in
was
the-
efficient, but I did it anyway.
I like those little ironish grinds. I don't. If I were getting like nostalgia, when we were just talking about shops, came back to me. I remember my mum coming home from work to find that I skipped school because Blood Rooms is super hard to get in mid 2000s, and one of the methods was when there was a game update or like the game went down, the stock
Go to the shop.
really restocked.
Yep.
So you're just kind of waiting, and you're like, I'm going to get to the Magic Guild, and I'm going to get in that shop, and I'm going to buy all the Blood Runes, and they were selling for what, 600 each, maybe with time like 1k each at the time.
I love that.
Yeah,
I did
that's
the exact
crazy.
same thing, but a patol for Lore Runes. And I would have a forum post saying, "Oh, they're probably actually they're not. We got rid of the forums, but you probably would have found my forum posts of like having the shop and when it would be open and closed if I had stock or not, because I would just hop around and get them."
Yeah.
But anyway, answer.
question.
We need to wrap up the podcast soon. There's still a couple of things that I want to ask. I'm sure
So-
Sweet's got some things.
Iron Man exclusive drop rates? No.
It's a no from me too.
I also would say no as well. I think I'd be open to exploring if it would ever be a possibility though.
If Iron Man played on a separate set of game worlds,
Mm-hmm.
as a different mode that played on its own worlds, I think it'd be the world would be more of an oyster, I think, to make changes and make it actually play a bit different. But it takes place on the same game worlds. I don't want to stand at the G as a main account and see somebody who's wearing a Bando's chestplate that was a lot easier to obtain.
But I mean, you just bought it anyway with bonds.
I might have bought it with bonds.
So yeah, I get your point though. It's
But,
fair. Interesting.
You know, a Bando's chestplate on an Iron Man, if it was twice as fast to get a drop, is inherently representing different value.
Yeah, I think
So-
where I was coming at it from though was more in the lens of like, say for example, it starts off balanced at a 100-hour grind,
Yeah.
and then it gets adjusted because of
Yeah.
balancing reasons to a 140-hour grind. Well, if we felt like it was suitable at a 100-hour for an iron, for example, now that iron is
Yeah.
having to do longer and it's not as suitable.
The
So,
reasoning is sound, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like the logic to doing it makes sense.
but there's the
But
reality
the
altogether.
cost to that, as the problem, and I'm sort of suggesting, is one of the problems. I'm like, that has a cost that degrades the game for other people in some capacity. That's probably more damaging than the benefit of the drop rates remaining static
Yeah,
for Iron Man. So
Yeah.
that's
fair.
kind of
I
my
think
view.
little things too, like would you allow them to de-iron? Would the collection log
Oh
method
no,
and-
you would have to be locked. You would be, and the thing is, I don't know.
It'd be
I think you'd
banned,
have to
right?
do it as new irons only as well.
Yeah.
There's so many complications. I just thought it was an interesting topic, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, we spoke for a good 20 minutes around.
Dude, it killed time.
So it's good. Okay, I want to ask. I'm going to quickly just throw it out there. What the hell's going on with leagues?
Leagues.
Yep,
Leagues is awesome.
it is awesome.
What do you want to know about leagues?
I want to know whatever you're able to tell me about leagues, or
Whatever
even
you
if not
tell me.
leagues, what about community events? Right, we're in September now. Gridmaster's coming out soon. It's going to be one of the very first community events. Well, it is the first community event
Yeah.
from the team in the sense that we want to do it. Obviously, it's heavily inspired, I would say, from leagues.
Yeah.
People are going to want to hear about leagues as well. I think Gridmaster is probably something worth talking about when it's actually out, so we know what people think about it. But we know people love leagues, so
I mean, leagues is one of those things that I think has been immensely valuable to the game. We've seen how much players love it. I mean, I remember us sat in the first ever session when we were really fleshing out what we wanted to do with the first league. And it was truly an idea that sort of generated over time, talking about doing a seasonal version of Old School. I think I first pitched the idea of just having a literal resetting server, right? It started as, let's just have a bunch of worlds that come online 3 months later, 6 months later, they reset. So it's just like,
It was similar.
it's just, that was basically the very start of like, let's just have a world that's it's not even different, but it's just a chance to sort of experience that rush of everyone starting together. And then you can do it again and again.
So
or
I
whatever.
think enough
And we
time has passed.
slowly developed that into, no, it should be something different. And it
Yeah.
developed into a temporary mode. And we sat in we had like probably half the Old School team in the main meeting room in the office. And we split into little working groups, discussed different ideas of what the twist could be. And Zaya Locked was the one we determined as like the best.
I've got the old Slack conversations from around that
Yeah.
time. It was just as we moved to Slack. They're on a confidence page. I
Nice.
kind of ported them over. I remember pitching to the players and they'd say, no one asked for this. But you go back and look at like the
Yeah,
initial Reddit thread
literally, we don't want
reactions.
this.
It was so mixed before we launched leagues the first
Yeah.
time. But the big things with leagues to me is like you've got a lot of players who've been playing this game 20 years. having the ability to re-experience it, but with a completely unique take on the game that feels different to whatever you've ever done before.
Yep.
Is a great thing to have,
Also,
right?
dude,
You get
dopamine.
more out of this game because of stuff like leagues existing, and we couldn't do this stuff in the main game.
No.
What's the experience like if you go to go and do some high end PVM, but you hit 3 times as fast? Like it's just cool.
Or just
we set out
spec.
like design the relics. Like
Yeah.
the direction was break the game, but break the game not too much, but break the game. Because
Final
like
Fantasy.
you can't just. It's like having JMod with cheats, right? You can't just if leagues you just logged on, you could type set stat to 99. It's not fun, right? That breaks the game, but it needs to break the game in a way that is all about that power fantasy and so on, and it feels great. We have had a lot of conversations around the next league, and that is an active.
We've confirmed
active
publicly it's in
discussion.
pre-production currently.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's moving forward. We've got ideas about what we want to do with it to some extent. And yeah, that is going to be basically what the team moves immediately onto fully after Gridmaster's done.
Awesome. And what's then after leaks? Anything else that we might want to talk about having the works, or is it going to be a case of we're keeping it open for now and we'll just see
keeping it open to now? Obviously, something like Gridmaster, the interesting part of this is wanting to experiment and to have other things, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people love game modes. You have a lot of people who literally now, like leagues is one of their main ways of interacting with old school. People's lives change, right? You can't dedicate so much time to the game, but having these moments where like, oh my God, this is my reason to come back and be interested is good. I want as many people to be able to experience old school, and I want people who are dedicated players to be able to keep on experiencing it in new ways. Leagues started out as probably a bit more of an open-minded, every league might be completely different to the last. We have morphed that more directly into leagues is now a pretty coherent experience, and for the most part, like we'll try and do different things, but the underlying core experience is probably going to remain fairly similar. Choices between relics, pathing, choosing a routing
Echo
option.
bosses. I want more Echo bosses.
Stuff
I want
like,
more unique weapons. They were
new
cool.
layers, right,
Yeah.
of being introduced that still make it feel fresh, but it's not like we're going to completely rip it up every league. And so we still want space to be able to experiment. We want to be able to work with the community to put different ideas into play. I'd love to work with creators to put on events and stuff as well. Like all this stuff just to, again, let people experience old school in different ways and let us just try crazy stuff and try different ideas. Like Gridmaster very much is born out of leagues is awesome. There's loads of cool components to leagues. We know people really want a bingo system in the core game as well.
Yep.
A lot of people like that formula of having the challenges on a grid. What if we combine the two in a different way? And to me, it's just, I want to be able to experiment, and I want to be the team to feel empowered to experiment and offer different things. And it's a chance to surprise players. The core game, obviously, blogs everything, full details out. Like, seldom are you surprised. A chance to surprise comes through things like leagues and game modes. And the key thing for me is having a good balance. Too many game modes distract from the core game too much, right? There's certainly temporary ones. I don't want the whole calendar to be completely swamped by different experiences. So that's got to be kept in mind.
Yep.
And we've debated many times on leagues specifically, how often should a league be? We did a survey after the league, and I think most people settled on like a year to a year and a half between leagues is actually the right sort of cadence. I genuinely always think we should to go slightly less often than people think. That would be my view, because too much of a good thing is it will distract too much, and I think there's a need to step back a little bit, not dedicate too much dev resource to it, because we've got a main game to uphold. I want to have things like Sailing coming out, Valnamors, and so on are really important for the main game. Too much time spent on temporary content is not a good thing for the overall balance. And I'd rather keep people wanting a little bit more than feeling like they've got too much of it. And I think Dead Man's probably one of the best examples of that. For people who remember way back, we were doing our Dead Man seasonals 4 times a year.
Quarterly,
it was always on, basically. You'd have a seasonal and then seasonal finale, and it was always going.
And
I think it took away from itself because people were sick of it. Like, it was just too much. Something being absent for a little bit and coming back lets us do it properly, bug fix, add features to it. If we're doing leagues more than once a year or something, there's no way we could do echo bosses and things like that every single time.
So I look forward to the next one and
I'm
seeing
buzzing for Leeds,
as more comes out. I'm looking forward to being able to talk about what the twist is. So, well, I'm gonna stop asking questions now. Sweeney, is there anything you want to ask before we wrap up the cast?
Just another thank you, Kieren, for joining us.
That's all right.
And we'll have you on again soon. I feel like it's one. You're a kind of guest where we can probably just talk for hours and hours and hours about different subjects.
There's
Absolutely.
so many topics that we talked about that we could talk about or we haven't got into, and there's a whole game and a whole history to the game that I'd love to keep chatting. So no, I'm always happy to come back on.
And I know the community,
chat old school.
they've loved seeing like the growth and progression of Mod Kieren from QA to design director.
Hell yeah, there's more to come hopefully with the game as well. Like, I mean, obviously we talked a little bit about the start, but the growth old school's been on in the time I've been at Jagex, over 10 years now, is quite staggering. And I think I'm glad it resonates that the direction things we've talked about, those principles are being recognized more and more. I think the players are much more conscious of why this game works nowadays than they used to be. And the fact it's sort of giving us that reassurance that we're doing a lot of the right things is great. And this game's only going from strength to strength. I don't think there's many games that can say they're this old and are in their best state ever. Like, I will actively stand by the fact that I think this game is in the best state it's ever been. As a new game. If you're a new player today, this game is better than it ever has been. And that should always be true.
Yeah.
It should always be true. In 2030, it should be better than it is today. That's going to be hard. I mean, I've always... the existential question I've asked myself. This game depends on updates. It's what keeps it alive. We update every week. It's been a part of the entire game's history. That's what keeps people coming back, right? What's coming out? We go on RuneFest stage. We announce awesome things. We do a summit. We reveal awesome trailers. People are excited by new things coming to the game. That's what keeps people playing. I've asked myself the question, what if the game was perfect? If the game's perfect, how do you do an update to it?
We'll just add more perfect, mate. Easy.
I feel like we covered this in the last one too. I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll cross over. But like, I think at the end of the day, I remember when I first joined and people were saying, you know, well, I hope in 5 years' time, you know, we'll still be at a point where the game is, you know, good. And then from there, it's like another 5 years' time. Like you know, the game's coming on 13 years old now. I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. There's still so much left that we want to be able to do and that we can do. Like the roadmap for, I don't want to talk too much about it because we'll save that for the summits. But there's a load of exciting stuff coming out.
So much stuff. It's so,
I think we can
exciting.
Always new stuff, but also reworks, rebalances, sweep ups, core months, etc. We keep going back.
That's the thing as well. You want to talk
about
about perfecting the game. There's so much that we can go back on to perfect that we haven't.
There was so much to fix.
Don't get us started on the smithing.
We are not perfect, and we're not even close to it.
No.
But it's sort of one of these longer term existential questions. Like, you know, there is a bit of fear, right? Platinum Age, Golden Age, all this sort of stuff.
We're going to the dark.
We don't want to ruin it. Like, so there's a level of fear if we get it wrong and there's damage to that. But what I will always stand by is that we are pretty good at correcting it.
Yeah.
If we completely mess up, we will change it. We will fix it until it's right. And
I think the biggest
stuff like
obstacles,
sweep ups are so important to tidying up old things that have maybe grown out of date as well.
It's great too because we announce a sweep up and then the opinions of the players are so rife and vociferous about what you should sweep up this, sweep up that, sweep up this. So we go into it feeling like, all right, cover these topics. And then we leave with like, okay, we've got another 6 more sweep ups to do, guys.
Yeah, literally. But it's great because it helps us out massively. And I mean, I love it. Obviously, I do because I work in the community team. But I love the fact that we can take those ideas and we can put them to the developers. The developers aren't turning around and being like, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. Not going to do that. It's like we need to find space for it, and everyone comes together to try and make it happen. But
we were wrapping up.
So before we carry on, thank you again, Kieren. It has been an absolutely wonderful cast. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. And as Sween said, I'm sure we could find more and more things to talk about. So we'll just have to get you back again in another year. Hopefully it won't be that long though. But yeah, thank you. Anything you want to just say before we end?
I just thank you to you guys for being awesome hosts. And I mean, it's just a joy to do what we do, I think, is not just this podcast, but the whole game and everything we get to do. I think we're lucky to be in the roles we are. And
very, very
looking
lucky.
after this
Very
game,
much so.
and we'll keep doing it. I'm sure we will.
Well, A big thank you to everyone at home for allowing us to be in this position as we are right now. If it weren't for you, then quite frankly, we wouldn't be here. Hope you've really enjoyed today's cast. If you have, let us know down below in the comments. Who would you like to see next? Any other particular JMod that we should be asking questions? And if so, what questions should we ask them? Anything that we didn't ask Kieren that we can potentially ask him in the next one? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Otherwise, that is going to be a wrap. So a thank you from all of us here at the studio, and we'll see you in the next one.